Hi everyone and welcome back. So in the last video we talked about a simple blog API and we were using fetch APIs to fetch the list of blogs and to save the new blogs. So fetch is actually a API available on the window object, and window.fetch you can access the fetch to create, insert, update, delete on the APIs. So apart from fetch, what is the legacy way of doing it? I mean, earlier we were using XHR request, XML HTTP request, and using XHR we were sending the request, or we were sending the request with a get, put, post, all these different methods. So whatever you are able to do with the fetch, we were doing it using XML HTTP request. So you can see here window.fetch is available. Similarly, there is another thing is a window.xml HTTP request that we can use to send the request to the API server. And there is just different ways of doing it. Either you can use a fetch or you can use XML HTTP request. Let's say this is an API. What this API does is when you hit this API, it is going to give you the random activity message like go, staggering, okay, enjoy your Sunday, or any random messages. So we are going to just hit this API on the click of button, and we are going to get this activity data and show it on the HTML. So this is a plain and simple thing we are going to do just to play with the XHR. I mean, you can do it with the fetch also. In the fetch, we were doing the same. Fetch API URL dot then we will get the response. Serialize the response using .json method. Still, it is a promise, so you can do a dot then to get the final message coming out of the API. So console.log data. So this is what you will get. So if you want to make an API call, you don't need to stick to XML HTTP request. You can just do a fetch URL and dot then and all those things. So dot then is a promise concept of JavaScript. We will learn and understand more about it. So there is a button with ID, and when you click onto that button, we are going to make an API call, and once that API call is made, we are going to get the message, and that message we are going to append to HTML DOM node. So this is simple HTML. So here we are getting a random message, okay, and when you click onto this, there is a p tag also we can have in the HTML that is going to render the message. So here document.get element by ID, when you click onto this button, so there is a get message is an ID. When you click onto that, we can just do add event listener, and add event listener we are doing a click event, and then there is a function. So what this function will do is we are going to write that function here. So using this function we are going to use first fetch. So let's say if you are doing a fetch, so you can simply do fetch URL, and you can do a simply promise a dot then it will give you the data. You can serialize the response. You can see this fetch is returning a promise, and to resolve, to extract the data from the promise, you have to do dot then. That is nothing but a JavaScript concept, okay, because this is something which is going to take time, because you are making API call to the remote server. It's not like it will give you the right away. So it's asynchronous operation. Asynchronous means which takes time, which doesn't give you the reply as instantly. And here we will get the data, and that data we are going to set on particular node. So let's say we have an HTML p tag here. On the p tag we want to set the message, so we can use the p tag with particular ID, and we can do document.get element by ID activity dot inner HTML or text content dot text content we can just set equal to data dot activity. Simple. So this is a random magic we are doing, and when you click onto this button, we are going to make the API call, and we are going to play simply with this, and document dot body. You can also set some class like, okay, class list dot add. So this is like if you want to add a particular class to body, then there is already a class list of class. You can just add a new class fun when you do this. So you can also do some effect when the API call is done. Here you can see I just need to reload this, I guess, because sometimes it doesn't appear properly. And here, okay, it is coming up. There is some issue with HTML. I didn't close the button tag. That's why the message is also coming in the button only. Now you can see it's giving us the random message. So this is nothing but we are doing the same fetch. You fetch, you on the button clicks, on the button click, we are making a fetch API, getting the data and setting the text content to a HTML DOM node. And we are doing simple fun document.body.class element.remove. So when the API is being made, we can remove the class. When the API is successful, then we can add that class, and we can just set button. Let's say we can just set some styling onto the button, border radius, background color, width, and all. And on this fun class which we are going to add to the body, we can just set background color CCC, gray color. So when you click onto this gray color will add and remove. You can see there is a flicker just to show you that this class list can be added and removed from body when the API is being made. So this is what the fetch is. We are using fetch because fetch is a global available on the window object, so you don't need to do window.fetch. You can just directly do fetch. We can also do these things with the Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Ajax is just nothing but the vanilla way. This is the real way of doing a API call in earlier back in those days. Now we have the fetch and we just simply use fetch, but what it really is, let's talk about that. So there is a button and add event listener. When there is a click onto that button, we wanted to make an API call, and that API call is nothing but we are doing XHR request, right? XHR is nothing but XML HTTP request. All the API call which are being triggered from the client are nothing but XHR or fetch. Okay, we can see that in the Chrome dev console also. On the network tab, we always select XHR and the fetch. Okay, here when you click onto this button, what we want to do is we wanted to execute a function. So this is the event handler, make Ajax request, and then you can define this make Ajax request function make Ajax request, and this Ajax request is nothing but going to make an API call. And here we are using this vanilla XML HTTP request. Let HTTP request equal to new XML HTTP request equal to new XML HTTP request object. Okay, now you can just do set HTTP request dot, if there is no HTTP request. I mean, every browser contains this global window object. Earlier version of Internet Explorer, that is gone now, so we don't need to talk about it. But HTTP request will always be available. If not, then obviously something wrong with the browser. Use this Chrome and the Firefox or Safari browser. Don't use any old legacy browser. We don't support that now. So if HTTP request object exists, then we can just do on ready state change. So we have the API server where we are going to trigger. So we need to, once the API server is ready to respond, then this handler will be used. Ready state dot open. This is okay. We are sending a get call to this resource, and we are looking for text.html. Okay, and then HTTP request dot send. So whatever we were writing using fetch, all those things we are doing here. So on ready state change, that means is server has received a request and now it is ready to respond. So here we need to check the server state. Okay, server is ready to respond, and server status code which is returned from server is 200. Then we will start getting the data. So this handler line 13 to line 15 is the code we are writing when server is ready to respond, and we are getting the response back from server. So here we will check HTTP request.status equal to 200. Then we are good. We can just say alert. Okay, we got the data. HTTP request dot response text. Okay, otherwise if we didn't get it, then we can just say alert, something wrong happened with the API call which you have triggered. So we are doing two checks here. Line 15, HTTP request dot ready state. First of all, server should be ready to send the request response. Second thing is HTTP status code is 200. That means we got a successful response from the server. If there is an error, obviously we will get an error. Right now here this so this is a step 1. Line number 8, getting the creating the object of XML HTTP request. Step number 2, checking the On ready state change, step number 4 is opening the connection by defining the method and URL. Step number 4, sending the request. So when you send the request, when server is ready to handle the response, line number 18 will execute and we will check, okay, status code 200, get the response to the client. So this is the legacy way of making an API call using AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Using this, let's say if there is a big page and you are clicking on some button, so we can use this AJAX call to click onto that button and re-render or update the particular portion of the page. We don't need to reload the page once this API response is received. So here we are checking the response status code is 200. That means success. You got the data. And ready state change is here. Now you can see when I click onto this, there is an API call being made, right? This is the API call HTTP get to this URL. That is not found. That's really not there. We can hit some JSON placeholder APIs like fake JSON API, like this URL you can hit, and we can just replace that here in the API.send. This here test.html, replace it with some mock APIs. Reload this browser so we can see the updated code. And here when you click onto this, we are making an API call. Okay, we still need to reload this. Sometimes the code doesn't refresh right away. So I rerun this and now I will try again. And you can see I got the response back. So I will check this now and you can see this is the response, the JSON response we are receiving from this API. And here in the network tab, you can see there are two important things, fetch and XHRs, because there are two different ways in which your front end can make a request using fetch or XHR. This is being used by fetch or XHR. This is being used by fetch, sorry, XHR. So XML HTTP request it is using and it is getting the response back, and in the alert we are showing that, and you can see it is getting the status code 200 on line number 3, status code 200 HTTP get, and this is the URL. Okay, everything goes good. We got the response. So this is just another way of making the API call and getting the response back. Okay, that's all about this video.